Cool. So, you know, like I said, just before we kind of get into the questions, just to kind of connect a little bit, if that's okay. Like, I'd love to learn a little bit, if it's all right, just about like what you do kind of currently, if that's all right. So, you're Steve Webster, and what are you doing, working on, you know, any sort of projects that you're involved in at all? I'd be grateful to learn about that.
Okay. Oh gosh, right. Quite a few really. I mean, my main job, although much of it, I call it is a job, but it's not. I'm only paid part time for what I do. It's a full time job. Is the founder and chief executive of a charity called FND Dimensions, and that supports people with functional neurological disorder, which is a bit of a mouthful. And it's a little heard of condition, really, and it's not one that's kind of supported really largely within the NHS in terms of services. And patients are often given a diagnosis and then their prescription is a website told to go away and get on with it, because there just isn't support there. So what we do as a charity is run peer support groups, and they take the form of face-to-face meetups and online meetups, presentations by external speakers on particular subjects that are relevant, one-to-one support for those that want it. And then just the kind of everyday running of the charity, really, and anything that's required. So it's a real mixed bag. Because obviously it's just, you know, the admin side, the fundraising side, which is always an issue, marketing, partner, organisation meetings, just whatever it might involve. It's a real broad spectrum. You're on mute.
This warm up isn't for
you.
This warm up isn't for you. So may I ask, you know, why is it that you're motivated to do that work? So, you know, I'm not leading into the question. You know, this isn't question one yet. Like, what is your why?
Right.
This is me asking you why you do that work. Like, why is it that you put all your time and energy, so much time and energy and heart, I assume, into that project? Why does that matter to you?
Well, I suppose if I start to answer this, I'll be starting to answer your first question, but it's just
fine, that's fine.
I suppose it's because really I've always been very people focused in the work I do, from when I was a kid, which I could talk about, you know, within the relation to the questions that you've got, but sort of everything I've done really is about people, and I'm being there for people and recognizing that, you know, people are the most important thing. You know, we all need each other. We need companionship and support and friendship and someone you can talk to, have a laugh with, whatever. And so I've always been involved in the charity sector when it comes to work. And then my health turned, and back in early 2000, I suppose during the 90s, it really started to have problems with my back and a few issues. And then in early 2003, there was a couple more issues, and then it kind of got worse. And then in 2006, I got hospitalized for 3 months. And then I was in and out of hospital for 6 years. And during that time, I saw a lot, witnessed a lot, you know, of things going on in hospitals. I was on a neuro ward because of the nature of my condition, which is a spinal condition. And then when I was having physio and things like that, I began to meet people who had got similar or related conditions to what I'd got. and I had the FND type symptoms, the functional neurological disorder type symptoms, and I was just meeting more and more people that had got those symptoms, but were got nowhere to turn to, no support, and I'd sit chatting to them, and sometimes they were just in absolute tears because they just didn't know which way to turn, and that's kind of where it all stems from, kind of what I'm doing now, really. And sort of, I started doing FND support and patient support. It'll be 10 years next month. So it wasn't a path I intended to be on by any means. It was circumstance that got me to it. But I always kind of stayed positive, even when things are pretty rough. And it's just kind of stemmed from there, really. I lost the career I was building up for myself, which was in the environmental sector, the community work with a charity, went out the window really overnight. After 16 years of building it up, and getting myself to quite a good position and in a good job, and that just went out the window. And so it wasn't a case of reinventing myself. It just kind of happened really by a process of osmosis, I suppose. Just the positions I found myself in and the people I found myself with and talking to, either in hospital or going for physio or whatever. And yeah, just realizing that I could help, I could do something, because by that stage, having been in a hospital so many times myself and kind of gone through the system, I kind of had an understanding which some of these other people didn't have. And just by listening, being an ear for somebody, and being able to show the empathy, I suppose, for their position. And one thing kind of led to another. And now I say FND Dimensions has been a charity for just over 6 years. We started off with a couple of groups, myself here in Derby, and then with a lady down in Essex I was put in touch with who wanted to do something similar. And there was also a group in Nottingham running, offering peer support for patients with FND. And we now have over 60 groups across the country and run all sorts of things. So it's been quite a journey, really. So in a nutshell.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. That's really inspiring, and congratulations for 10 years next month.
Yeah.
That's incredible. May I ask, what's the best thing about the work?
Oh gosh, I suppose it is just it's the people side of it. It's being able to support people, and realizing that it might not be huge sometimes, but being able to make a difference to people's lives, when they've got nowhere else to turn to. I might sound a bit arrogant, but it's not meant to. It's just the case, as kind of like I was saying earlier, when there aren't the services there to support people and they've got nowhere else to turn to. And FND as a condition is very hard to understand and get your head around. And it's because it sits between sort of neurology and psychology. And patients are often batted back and forth between those two services and not really sticking anywhere. And then kind of in the meantime, they're left sort of suddenly, the way the FND comes about is that there are numerous ways it can be because of an accident, bang to the head, viral infection, so physical trauma of some description, but also psychological trauma is part of it as well for some people, and just having sort of with other people created something which other people can turn to for support and gain that understanding and know they're not going to be judged because of their symptoms, particularly when they've got things like vocal tics or physical tics that are going on, which often keeps them very isolated. They won't go out because of it, because of their symptoms. And they can come to a meeting online or face to face, whatever. And if they have, a lot of people suffer with seizures, and if those things happen, they're not judged by it, and it's not a great big panic. It's just stay calm, work with them, give them the space they need, make sure they're safe. If they're at home, they're okay anyway, their position they're in, if it's something online, or they've got somebody about who can help them. And we just carry on. It's kind of, we're not being blasé about it, but it's just kind of letting it happen and not making a big deal of it. So it upsets anybody else or anything like that. So it's just that acceptance. And that's a big thing with FND, because it's kind of the history of FND really is one of kind of stigma really from the past. It used to be kind of known as hysteria and conversion disorder. Conversion meaning that people were converting sort of emotional trauma into physical symptoms. And even if that is the case for some people, which we know it is, they have had some kind of psychological trauma going on in their life. If they've got physical symptoms because of it, those symptoms need treating and not ignoring. They're not making it up. It's happening. But people judge, particularly those that are uninformed, some of whom should know better because of the positions they hold. And FND is sort of, lacks far behind other things like MS and Parkinson's and stroke in terms of research and awareness and support. But there is research starting to come out now which shows that, there are issues with patients with FND, with areas in the white matter of the brain where all the connections go and the messages are sent and received. And when that goes awry, it results in a whole host of sort of physical and sensory disabilities, movement disorders, seizures, sometimes loss of voice, eyesight problems, just there's such a range. It's huge. So yeah, it's just being able to be there and provide that support as best we can is, it's quite rewarding. Tiring at times, and with a charity like ours, it's pretty much 24/7, 365. Unless it's a leap year, and then there's February 29th, and when that year comes around, I'm going to make sure I have that day off. Yeah, that it's the nature of the beast, I suppose.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I think it's a really, brilliant thing to see, where you meet someone who, as a result of an experience that they've had, they are able to, find a sense of purpose, whether, aligned towards a sense of purpose, where they're absolutely the best people for the job of supporting particular people that have various and issues like that. So, and this thing about being, almost like best situated to be the person, or to be able to lead a project that can make the kind of difference it is deeply needed and deeply appreciated. It's so important, and it's so valuable, and it's really wonderful to see where individuals can have our life experiences and then know how best to contribute our gifts. I think that's a really profound thing. May I just invite you, if you want to, if there's any last things that you might like to say to do with what motivates you or drives you. You've spoken at length there, and that was really valuable. Really, really appreciate that insight. Is there anything else you'd like to say about any of your motivations or drives surrounding the work you do?
There is one. When I was thinking about the questions you sent, I thought about it, and I made a note of something. And When I was 17, I think it was 17, 18, I did. I was living in Leicester at the time, which is where I'm from, and there was an organisation called Chat, which was operated through the City Council, Children's Holidays and Training. And what they did is they, I applied to go on a training course to work for them as a volunteer on children's play schemes and children's holidays. And a lot of the kids that were going to the holidays in particular were sort of from deprived backgrounds, etc. And when I was younger, a lot younger, you know, I was fairly shy. Wouldn't say boo to a goose really. And I used to do sort of a lot of amateur dramatics and things like that, just because it was a kind of way of escaping or taking on a different persona, if you like. I didn't have to be me. I could just be this character. But then I did this training course with Chat, and I had to go. It was held at Easter, and it was for a week. And it was with a group of people I'd never met before. And we all met in town to get a bus to a centre outside of the city, a place called Bow Manor Hall. And I didn't know anybody on the bus. It's a real mixed bag of people. And again, at the start of the week, I was fairly quiet and just kind of listening and going through the training that they were doing, and which was a range of things to do with looking after young people, but also activities you could do, songs you could sing with them, etc. Just a whole range of stuff that you could use as tools to be on the holiday, because when you're on the holiday, you have a group of kids to look after and be in charge of for the day. And they were long days as well. We're talking like, you know, because it was more or less like when they got up in the morning, sort of 6 o'clock, and then they wouldn't settle down till gone midnight or whatever. So you were working 18-hour days. These kids running riot half the time. But the training course it really had a massive impact on me. And at the end of the week, we had to put on little shows and stuff where we were in small groups. And I just felt myself coming out my shell that week, and I just kind of found myself a bit. And that was kind of recognised by the course tutors and stuff, who just, you know, because you know, some people didn't pass the week; they failed it. You know, and they weren't allowed to go on and carry out support and work for the charity. But I passed the week, and it just had a huge impact on me, and just, you know, just that I don't know. As I say, I kind of found myself, kind of landed on my feet a bit with it, and then, and I suppose from then onwards, really, and the stuff I did, you know, it's even more so, you know, it's that kind of put me down the people focused route with whatever I did. You know, even with the environmental work I was doing, that was all about local communities and getting them involved, and and then you know, just doing volunteer work while I was doing my A-levels, working in a school, you know, helping out one particular class, and while I was at university doing similar sort of things. And you know, I've worked with a broad range of people over the years in sport as well, with people learning difficulties, physical difficulties, physical disabilities. You know, so it's yeah, but I suppose that was a big thing for me, and I suppose relatively young age, and yeah, I suppose just never forgot it, and I can still remember the songs that we were taught and stuff like that. You know, they just kind of stuck in my head. So yeah,
I guess it makes me just appreciate how important it is that we have organisations like this that exist, and organisations like yours that exist, because by people having access to those experiences, lives can be massively changed, which again kind of just brings to the forefront of my mind the need for people to be able to have access to these various different, like affirming, fulfilling, uplifting, inspiring, nourishing, organizations and projects that we benefit from, which are so transforming, really, really can be really inspiring people to take a particular path, or ultimately just really change somebody's life. So the value of that can't really be emphasized enough. So I'm really grateful that you shared that. I think that's really fascinating. And just to lead, to take that and just to lead on to this kind of question that we're exploring at the moment, which I appreciate you've already answered in to a great degree, but just to give you an opportunity to say more if you'd like to. There's this question too, which says, what issues, experiences, activities, or organizations changed your life? And you just highlighted a really great example there, and said quite a lot, which was wonderful. But is there anything else that you'd like to add to that at all?
Oh gosh, I suppose family, they make a difference as well, and friends. I've got some family friends that have gone through tough times or whatever, and you see that and you try and support that way, and likewise they've supported me. When I was going through a tough time with my health, I'd say between 2006 and 2012, I spent roughly about a year of that time, that 6-year period, in hospital at various points. And that has a massive impact. And at the same time, I was being supported by my family and friends, and I'll never be able to thank them enough for what they did for me, because their support helped me stay positive. So I think the impacts on a person come from all round, all parts of your life in different ways, and then your emphasis change. I got married, and we had children, and my kids are now growing up, etc., and they become a big sort of force for, I think, personally for me, for staying positive and trying to be there for them. And the funny thing is if I'd have kept on the path I was going on with my job before I got ill, I probably wouldn't have seen my kids as much when they were younger as I did. But because I'd been ill and because I wasn't working, it meant I got to be here I'd help take them up to school in the morning, get in my wheelchair and go off to school with them in the morning, be there for them in the afternoon to pick them up. So it gave me an opportunity to spend time with them that, probably a lot of people would love, beg to have, but their jobs don't allow it. And so I was probably on a career path that probably would have kept me out early in the morning, not back till later in the day, because of whatever. I used to be going down to London quite a lot, or whatever, and the office was based in Birmingham. So I was out and about quite a bit beforehand. So it's about taking the positives, I think, and it'd be very easy to think, look back at what kind of happened to me, I suppose, and what I went through at the time, and just to have completely gone the other way, and I suppose, with all sorts of kind of maybe mental health issues and lack of confidence and things like that. But I suppose because of the support I've had, my own mindset which is built on past experience of working with so many varied people, who a lot of them, particularly the way I did with people with disabilities, they were in a lot worse state than I was, and they had lifelong conditions. I mean, my condition isn't going to ever go away. It's a lot better than it was. I'm able to do a lot more now. It's under control through medication and through a medical implant I have. so without all that, it may have been a very different story. So yeah, it's yeah, trying to see the positives all the time, really, and as much as possible. It's not always easy in a job like this. Some days, you have difficult days, and there are people's stories of people who come to you, and the nature of the work with FND is that people have to battle a lot to get any sort of support. So that can be quite frustrating at times, and quite, I wouldn't say demoralizing, but it's just like those constantly fighting or trying to, be the voice for a sector of the community that isn't heard enough. Yeah, it's not sure I'm going now. I'm losing my track, but
this is excellent. This is gold. This is absolute gold. So I'm really, really grateful that you're taking your time with this, and you can take your time. That leads very nicely, actually, into the next question, which, please, you can take your time with this as well. Is so why are you a community ambassador?
Kind of by default, really. I think. I'll be honest. I applied for a job, which I got an interview for, and then the interview was an absolute car crash. It really was. It was. I've never fared so badly in an interview before, and I knew it during the interview, and I knew it afterwards, and I mean, I laugh about it now, and it wasn't that long ago, really, only a few months ago. But from that, I got to one of the interviewers, was Sarah Payne, the Midlands Regional Manager for Thriving Communities and the National Academy of Social Prescribing. And there was obviously something about what I said and the way I said it and my background and my application that she liked. And the day after my interview, she got in touch with me, asking if I'd be able to talk and have a chat about what she was doing. And the offer came to be a community ambassador. And I said yes. I say it all kind of happened a bit by default, really. Might never have met Sarah otherwise, but again, things happen in these unexpected ways sometimes, or most unexpected ways. And here I am now, nearly 6 months later, and I'm part of a network that's pretty amazing in terms of the people that are in it. And that's great.
Excellent. So just out of curiosity, I'd love to know this. So why did you say yes? And what do you think is valuable about the kind of the role of a community ambassador? Why do you think that a community ambassador is important? And why do you think it's like a valuable role for yourself to be fulfilling?
Yeah, I suppose there's a number of things, really. I suppose it kind of was, I suppose, a recognition of the work I was doing for the charity, and being asked to take on the role in the first place. She saw what the charity was doing, what I was doing in my job, and in supporting people in the same way very much social prescribers do, and GP link workers, whichever title you want to give them. And so there was that connection there. And I was in a position then to be able to also then promote the work of the Thriving Communities and NASP, and say to people, have you thought about speaking to your, through your GP surgery, making contact with your link worker, etc. And at the same time, I was sort of going about sort of building the links locally with other organisations as well. So as well as promoting what I was doing with the charity that I run, it gave me, I was in a position to be able to say, oh, and as part of my role, I'm doing this community ambassador sort of stuff for the social prescribing side. It's been great at providing some links with some amazing people. You know, there are so many amazing people out there doing some really amazing work, and you know, as being a community ambassador, you know, is linking me up with some of those people. You know, and you know, so far, unfortunately, it's all been online. But we have some really good discussions when we meet up, you know, and debates about different things. And, you know, we've all got, I suppose, the similar sort of aim, and it's all about people and community and trying to make a difference in some way. And they're all coming at it from that angle, you know, so it's not, you know, I don't think there's anything particularly necessarily special about what I do in any way at all, because there are so many people out there doing the same sort of thing. But when you start to join all that together and realize kind of what kind of movement it is, if you like, and you know, there's hundreds of charities and stuff, and the power of those organizations, you know, when people start to talk with each other and link together and just learn from each other, you know, and support each other. People have got a particular issue they want to talk about, or experiences, etc., or events they're running, whatever it might be. Then to start, you know, to be part of something where that all comes together is brilliant.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. That's really great. So I have like a final question, and it's, when you think about our communities and how important community is, with your experience and your awareness, what would be your hopes for 2023 for communities generally across the country?
Oh gosh, just a small question there then. Oh, I don't know. I suppose really at the moment, you look at the way, I suppose, society generally sort of has gone over the last 3 years in particular, with COVID and all the rest of it, and sort of mental health becoming a huge issue across the board, you know, sort of in the news every day. You know, we're in a period at the moment where there are, you know, people, you know, health service, teachers, all sorts of people. You know, we seem to be in a winter of discontent, you know, of strikes and, you know, people, you know, who are giving and giving and giving, but don't feel they get the recognition or the right support back for that. And I suppose it'd be, in an ideal world, you know, it would be that sort of turning around again, and people feeling more positive about what they're doing, and happy with what they're doing, and not feeling taken granted, you know, being taken granted for, I suppose. You know, for us as a charity, you know, we sort of scrape by really, you know, like most charities. It's, you know, getting funding is difficult, particularly when we work in an area which isn't well recognised. So we don't pull on the heartstrings in the same way as some other charities might do. We're not sort of one of the big charities in terms of big conditions like cancer or anything which, you know, people easily recognise and are willing to support because it affects so many people. And I you know, I accept that. But at the same time, there's, you know, we represent a sort of sector of the community that needs greater recognition. So the more we can do to build on that, the better. So I would hope that improves during this year. We've been fortunate recently on taking on some new trustees and board members, etc. So that should help with what we're doing in terms of profile and just some of the work that needs doing, because at the minute it falls to a few people and there's just so much to do. As I said before, it's pretty much 24/7, 365, and which can mean some long days. So it'd be nice to, I suppose, ultimately, if I was thinking, so by the end of this year, well, probably not by the end of this year, but just in the future, I would say ultimately, well, I would argue that for any charity, their ultimate aim should be not the need to exist, because everything is in place. But I think that'll never happen, because I think we're quite lucky in this country, because we live in a country where people are very happy to give of their time and volunteer for things and want to help and want to support. And so because there's that kind of, I think there's a pretty wide ethos within our society about that giving support and help and recognising where people need it, etc. The charity sector will never disappear, and and it delivers so much. And if the charity sector and the third sector organisations, voluntary sector organisations, suddenly stopped doing what they did for, say, a couple of weeks, the impact would be absolutely massive, beyond anybody's, comprehension, really. And it would certainly show the powers that be, if you like, I suppose, governments, etc., sort of just how much kind of goes on by ordinary people doing extraordinary things every day for no recognition. They're not in it for the money, it's just to give back. So it's, I suppose, as I say, in the long run, not to exist as a charity, or the need to exist, would be fantastic, because services are there to support people, so that it allows them to get on with their lives. But that's pretty pie in the sky and a bit sort of blokes deluded. But yeah, some move just towards greater recognition of, for me, with the charity of FND, and maybe a few more volunteers to help out, with what we do. We've got some fantastic volunteers, but we can always use more people. Because we're growing all the time as a charity. Numbers are going up weekly. So while that demand is there, we need to try and match it. So it'd be having the resources and the structure there to be able to match it.
So on that point, if anybody that's watching this that was thinking about the idea of volunteering generally, just this idea of being a volunteer that supports issues and causes that people care for, that find meaningful, and obviously you point then at how valuable that is, like across the whole of society, and the sheer need there is for people to be volunteering in areas that they find of interest and value and meaningful. In your view, what do you feel are some of the best things about volunteering? What are some of the main benefits for people who volunteer?
I think it's that buzz of giving something back and knowing you're helping somebody or an organisation. The kudos you can get from it, it can be it's a great thing for your CV, sort of thing, that in terms of that personal development, the connections you make with people, the friendships you make, the things you learn, the skills you gain. There's a whole sort of plethora of things, but just being part of something as well. It's you're not just going about your daily lives blinkered, to getting up, going to work, coming home, getting dinner, whatever it might be, and just living, not sort of seeing that wider world. But so by giving your time to something else, just can open up a lot of opportunities. Just chances to engage with people at a different level that you maybe never felt possible before or realized was possible until you actually do it. And then it can be like, whoa, that's amazing, you know, and then people want to give more. And I think just it might sound a bit twee, but just it kind of emphasizes what's really important in life, you know. And we can all have a lot of stuff, you know, and but at the end of the day, it is just stuff, and you know, it doesn't do much really. Okay, it might be nice to have a big posh car or whatever, or the latest TV or all the gadgets, whatever, but they're nothing compared to what people offer and what community offers. I say it probably sounds so twee and just a bit like, oh my god, but it's true. You know, it's so true. It's people are what life's all about. You know, and you take people away from, you know, and it's a very cold place, very isolated place. And I suppose that, again, is part of what we do as a charity. We try and take away that isolation that so many people suddenly find themselves in because of the condition they're in. So, yeah, here endeth the lesson.
That was brilliant. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. That's all of the questions that I have. I'm extremely grateful for your time. I do want to just give you one last opportunity. Is there anything else at all that you'd like to say? Or are you good?
I think I'll probably shut up now. People, I know I don't think there's anything else I'd like to say. Just thank you for the opportunity. It's you know, it's great. You know, it's you know, answering questions like this. You know, and you know, getting the questions before, and so you makes you sit back and think a little bit about why am I doing what I'm doing, and I say it just made me think back to things like I did in my teens and stuff, and even before that, really, I suppose as well, things I was involved with. But you know, as a child, because my mum worked at a nursery, and so I would go from school to the nursery as from a junior school at the age of sort of 10 to the nursery where my mum was working till she finished work, and we'd go home. And I'd be helping out with the little kids there, you know, playing with them or reading or whatever. So it made me even think back that far, you know. It's just, you just kind of, yeah, just, I don't know, just get a bit of perspective, I suppose.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Steve. I'm going to let you go, but I just want to say, like, genuinely, just from me to you, just thank you so much, mate. I've so much of what really resonates with me. And I really appreciate and respect what you've done and what you do. And I thought that everything that you were saying about, you know, the benefits of volunteering and stuff like that, it was really powerful. You know, I really feel the same way as you about that. I think it's one of the most sort of meaningful and fulfilling and sort of kind of wise and healthy choices that anybody could make if they're able to just try and identify the things that really matter to them in life and give their time and energy to it. And by making that kind of contribution like that, not only do we make a major difference in the lives of other people, but it can be, you know, like it's a stuff of life. It's kind of what I believe is what we're here for. So I thought the way that you explained it was brilliant and also really funny.
Right.
So, but what I'll do is I'll get with your day. I'll keep you updated with anything we do.
Okay.
The footage. I will send you a link to. I'll work out a way of getting you access to the whole thing in case you want to have a look at it. If there's anything that you really don't want to be used, it's an opportunity for you to have a look at it. Please, you can then feel free to say if there's anything that you really liked, where you're like, oh, I'd be very happy for that to go out, or anything that you didn't like. And we will always make sure that we get your consent before we use any of the footage.
Okay. Yeah, fine. Brilliant.
Okay.
No problem.
All right, then. Okay. Go then.
Okay. Thanks very much. Okay. See you soon.
soon.
All
All
right,
the best.
take care.
Brilliant.